You probably have not heard, but there's a new baby. There's a new baby in the world that somehow, I don't know, is it a big deal? You think in Canada it would be a bigger deal, because they're still a part of the Commonwealth, but whatever that means. I mean, I grew up in Canada and we knew nothing about it except when the Queen was coming or whatever. It's like, big deal or whatever. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just kind of the way it was. We did sing God Save Our Gracious Queen, every day in school, and then we'd sing the national anthem. But, the reason I talk about kind of the royal family, because it is a big fanfare, whatever happens to the royals, there's something that people feel, that's big news, that's worthy, that's something to think about, it's something to talk about. And on Monday there was a baby that was born, and, but a lot of people are like, well, what's the big deal? Well, for some people, maybe it is a big deal, and maybe we don't even really know why it's a big deal, but, especially for young girls, a lot of times when they're playing, make-believe and dress up, and they're creating a story, I know sometimes they play house, but other times they want to be a princess, because they've watched maybe a lot of movies that involve, a princess, a young girl, and maybe she's growing up that one day she's going to, be recognized as somebody, living in a palace and somebody in this position of a queen, right? So there's something within people that maybe it kind of draws them to imagine what that would be like. What it would be like to be born into a palace, into royalty, into fame, into money, into position and power. And, so sometimes people really think about that. Maybe young kids and all the way up, and maybe sometimes we still, think about. I mean, let's be honest. You're not going to make it. We may not even visit Buckingham Palace, and if you visit, they're probably not going to let you in, right? So it's just not. You just don't walk up, ring the doorbell, and they invite you in for tea. It doesn't generally happen. But the interesting thing is there's something maybe within us, and maybe something that God's put within us, and it's kind of hard to explain because God says, I want you to be a part of my family. I want to bring you into my family. I want you to be born into my family. This was God's plan at the very beginning, creating Adam and Eve. And if you're kind of following through even the heritage, the lineage, genealogy in the Gospels, it goes all the way back to Adam. And what does it say about Adam? Adam was he's the son of God. So now you may say something like, well, there's been a new baby boy born into the palace this week, and maybe for some of us, we should almost be like, that's not a big deal, right? Because I was born into God's family. I mean, that's bigger. Like that puts us in a much different position. That puts us into a place where we can say, I'm a part of royalty. I'm a part of this family. I'm a part of some inheritance. I have access to the power of God. I have access to this place where God has invited me in. So I could live in his home, and I mean, I don't think it's necessarily bad to say what he's creating for us, maybe like a palace in our mind. It's going to be a great, fantastic place. But this is what God has destined for us, that through Christ we can be a part of a royal family. And, sometimes I do play off on those words. Since we are the Royal Oak Church of Christ, sometimes I do call us the royal family here. Because we are, right? We don't have to go to England. Again, could you imagine being invited? You get something in the mail saying, you are invited to come and have tea with the Queen and maybe the Prince and at Buckingham Palace. You think, what a fantastic honor. They're going to pay for it. They're going to provide for it. I don't have to do anything. I just have to show up. Well, that's the kind of invitation God has created for us, that we can be a part of his family. He's done all the work. He's done all the sacrifice. He's really been doing all the inviting, right? And he's just saying, if you guys want to come, I've paved the way. I've laid out the road map that you can actually come be a part of my royal family. And so that should be exciting for us. And again, maybe that has something to do with how we express that, how we feel about a relationship with God. That it's not all about rules, it's more about a relationship. Within a relationship, yes, there are some things that we do, because we're in the relationship. Does that make sense? So you grew up in a home, right? And your parents provided for you, and they loved you, and they were, and even some of the songs, I know that one song we didn't really know too well, at least I didn't, about the family and the growing up and the parents disciplining you, and sometimes they encourage us and discipline us, right? And I think one of the verses, our mothers would encourage and discipline us sometimes with a smile and sometimes with a rod, but and that's the way God is as well. But it's interesting because I was thinking, if my mom is going to encourage me or discipline me, I would always prefer it with a smile, right? But we even know how that works, doesn't it? Don't we? Because sometimes when we're doing something wrong, sometimes she'll just look over and she'll just kind of give us that smile, and we're kind of like, okay, I get it, right? Okay, I'm changing my ways. Because I maybe know what's coming next if I don't, pick up on the cue, right? That she's trying to tell me, knock it off, right? So today we want to talk a little bit about Proverbs 31. Talks about a woman, maybe talks about a mother, talks about how all this comes together. And so, by the way, before, I thought I'd bring up this pen for you so you could read it. You can't read it, it's too small. But anyway, so we have a pen for all of the ladies. It's not just for mothers. It's for all the ladies. It's not a mother, well, kind of is a Mother's Day pen. Not really. It's a pen for mothers. I mean, I don't want anyone to say, well, I'm not a mother, or, I'm too young to be a mother, or I've never been married. So we're not trying to choose anybody out. But so on it says, leading lady, loving the Lord through life. It's got lots of flowers, pink end. If you're a guy that wants one, come talk to me because we need to have a discussion. All right, so anyway. So we've got those at the end. There'll be somebody at the back door passing those out. Maybe a couple of our deacons. I know Mark's back there, and he said he's going to help out, and we'll have some at the front. So that's what we're going to do. So, there's a verse in the Bible that also talks to some ladies that kind of are would-be, could-be mothers, but they're not mothers. And so here's a scripture that kind of makes us, or helps us at least maybe to put that in context, from Psalm 113. And there it's talking about people that never really had all their maybe dreams or expectations or their desires or their hopes. And that's kind of what the chapter's about. They've never seen those come to fruition. They've never had them fulfilled. And so inwardly they're still struggling. Sometimes it's with health. Sometimes it's with a position in life. And here it's even talking about some women that, back then maybe they did want to be mothers. Now, there's some ladies maybe that say, well, I never want to have kids, and that's fine. You can make that choice. There's nothing, I know way back in the beginning, we kind of talked about that on Wednesday night in Bible class, that God said, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth. We can still kind of do our part with that, but the earth is getting pretty full, right? So, I'm not saying we couldn't use some more people, but it's not like, boy, we're really running down on, these humans are about to become extinct. We're just so low on humans. But if you decide not to have kids, I'm just saying that's okay, right? But some people want to have kids, and they find it very difficult, to conceive, to become pregnant, or sometimes even lose children when they're in the womb. So we're very sensitive to that, and we understand that can make Mother's Day painful, or sometimes for mothers that have lost their children at a very young age, or some mothers. Could we be honest here that there's probably some mothers and some fathers here today that we had some high hopes and big plans and dreams for our kids, and they didn't turn out that way, right? And so even that could break our heart, and I understand that. So what does the Bible say, though, about this idea of mother? So Proverbs 31 is going to help us through that a little bit, and so he's just kind of saying, to an extent, this is what a mother is, or maybe, and I don't want to make it like, okay, this is what mothers should be because, you're just not doing what you ought to be doing, so, straighten up and be a better mother. That's not what this is about. Because what Proverbs 31 is really doing, it's written by a mother to the child. The child is a king. We don't really know exactly who the king is, so we don't know who the writer of Proverbs 31 is. It says King Lemuel, who we don't know who that is necessarily. So we've got some options of who it could be. Reading through the Old Testament, you don't really read about a lot of kings of Israel. And there's nobody by that name, right? That was a king of Israel. So who is this? We want to talk about that a little bit. But his mother his mother was telling him all these things about what a woman should be, what a woman could be. And maybe she was just kind of saying, because at the beginning he says, this is what my mom taught me. And so he's kind of writing it down, I'm guessing from memory. So what would that mean? That his mom may have taught him these lessons like more than once. Well, why should she keep going over and over about these qualities of a woman to a young guy, perhaps even before he gets married, to say maybe you should be looking at some of these qualities for a woman that you're going to marry, right? Just don't marry the best looking one. You know, there's other things to take into consideration. And maybe this guy, maybe he's got some good things to say. Because maybe he's experienced some things even in his own personal life, saying, I need to pass this on to other people. Because although my mama taught me some things about a woman, in my younger days, I was not listening very closely. So what is this? How do we kind of start? We're actually going to start kind of near the end. Okay, near the end of Proverbs 31, to say this is the overall picture of how it ends up. This is talking about this woman of noble character. Again, it's not necessarily talking about a mother, just a woman, probably more specifically a wife. This woman does have children, but not all of married women have children, and not all women are married. But this applies to all women. As a matter of fact, we can apply this to a lot of men as well. These qualities, I'm just talking about the qualities of what we could be or should be or what God has planned for us. So it says, give her, this woman, give this to her, give her the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. So it's just kind of saying this woman, because she is living such a virtuous life, and to a certain extent it would be a godly life, that people are going to talk about it. And this is kind of even saying it's going to be her husband and her children are going to, at least they're the ones that are going to be talking about the qualities, and they're going to praise her. And what it means, the gates, it's not the gates of your house, because most people didn't have a fenced-in yard. It was talking about the gates of the city, which is kind of where the public stuff happens. So we would say, you know, that's where the media is, or that's where, you know, the people that are posting things on Facebook, that's where they are, or, you know, the tabloid people, they're at the city gates, because that's kind of where the community comes together. A lot of times it was for judgments. That's where the leaders were. That's where people were making sure people coming in and out of the city. So we're kind of overseeing the affairs of everyone and the welfare of the people in the village. So, but it's this place where the people are, the leaders are, where people talk. It's at the city gates. People are even going to be talking about this woman because of her character, because of how she lives and how she acts. It's not just about what she does, but it's about her attitudes and her motives and kind of what makes her the person and the woman that she is. So just to appreciate, it's kind of what it's saying. Doesn't that say that? Let her works praise her in her gates. So for a godly woman, I do not apologize for at least doing a lesson today on a godly woman, because it says we should be praising godly women. Now, I'm not picking anybody out, so don't be thinking he's going to call on me. But we need to praise godly women. So Mother's Day maybe is a time where we can do that, at least for the people that mothered us. And even if our mothers are gone, mine passed away 4 years ago, but even if it's our mother that's not here anymore, I'm sure we still have memories of our mothers. So we would praise her in the gates. Well, what kind of person would this be? Proverbs 31 and verse 28. So we're kind of moving backwards now, because that was kind of the end, the conclusion. But now, her children rise up and call her blessed, and her husband also, and he praises her. So again, this is where we see her family, which is kind of interesting, because as a woman, I mean, you may be here at church and we see you as a woman, but we don't really know you that well, right? We don't know how you act, at your house, or, when you're having a bad day, or when things aren't going so well. We don't know you that well, but when you're family, the people that know you the best, they kind of see you when you're all dressed up, and we also see you in your PJs, In other words, it's the good days, the bad days, the struggles, the challenges, and also, the way you treat your family, the people close. It's when you're family and they know you the best, and they can praise you, they can honor you, and they can thank you, and they can appreciate you. And of course, we know that even amongst families, by the way, did anybody here have a perfect mother? Right? No, we didn't, right? And part of the reason why my mother was not perfect, I can tell you, because all the stuff that I did would drive anybody crazy. right? So, yeah, our mothers aren't perfect, just like we're not perfect. And if we're a parent today, we know we make a lot of mistakes, not only with our own life, but in raising our children, right? We don't always get it right. So we're not saying she's a perfect mother. We're just saying she's got great qualities. And so we want to look at what some of these qualities are of this woman. So we're jumping back a little bit more now in verse 15. And so I'm just picked out a few of them that kind of connected with me, and you can pick out some of your own as well. And, you can talk to somebody else about that on your own time, I guess. But this is what I found out about a woman. And these are the things that, maybe it's just because these are important to me, or things that I have seen and I've witnessed, okay? So verse 15, she rises while it is yet night, and she provides food for her household and portions for her maidens, okay? So what is this saying? It's not saying she has insomnia. It's not even really saying she's not lazy. What it's saying is she really cares about her family. How hard is that to do for women? To provide for your family all the time, right? Because, as a mother, sometimes as a wife, it's constant. Your kids are always wanting things. And because what it's like making food for your family, okay? Between making food and doing dishes and cleaning up, like that alone is a full-time job. Now, especially back then where they didn't have a dishwasher and they didn't have the microwave and they didn't have frozen dinners and they didn't order pizza from Jimmy John. They didn't do any of that, right? So they had to do it all. It was a lot of work. But it's hard sometimes to do things continually, consistently, all the time, just time after time after time after time. It's hard sometimes just to say, well, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going on strike. People don't appreciate me like they should. And sometimes the hardest child for a woman to maintain in the home is her husband, right? Just kidding. It was supposed to be funny. I guess for some people it's like, oh, right, that went down. Oh, that's you, buddy. So yeah, this is the challenge, but she's just consistently giving of herself. And you see something on there? It's not just for her own family, it's for the people within her own home. So who are the maidens? I'm guessing the maidens would be, we would call it, the people that are the house workers. Maybe they've got some hired, because again, if you're the king, you may have some people that help out. Some people that maybe, they should be preparing the meals and cleaning the house and doing the dishes. But apparently this woman, she's saying, no, I can take care of that. And I'm even going to serve them. I'm really concerned about people within my household, whether they're related or not. She's just a giving, loving, caring person. And so this is the kind of woman, but this is the kind of person a mother is, right? A mother is someone who thinks about her kids, oftentimes puts her kids before herself. She sacrifices for herself, sometimes financially. She'd like to go out and buy something, but she realizes, no, I've got to get something for my child. Maybe they need new clothes, a new pair of shoes, or maybe they really want a toy. Instead of her going out and buying something for herself, she sacrificed for it. Or, maybe she served the meal and there's only a little bit left and she's still a little bit hungry, but she'll say, I'm going to give, maybe the first calling of seconds to my children so that they can eat. I could be selfish and say, well, I made it and I deserve it and I want it. No, she's willing to give. So she's willing to sacrifice her own needs and her own desires for the needs and the desires of her children. So that's one of the great qualities of this woman. Proverbs 31 and verse 17. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. Okay? And so, again, what does this mean? Does this mean she has a membership at Planet Fitness? Well, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not what this is talking about. It's not talking about her physically working out to be strong. It's just because she's working all the time. So she is strong, but she's not just strong physically. She can be strong emotionally. She can be strong relationally, and she can be strong spiritually for her family, for her children, and even for her husband. Because, sometimes even husbands need encouragement. Sometimes they need a kind word. Sometimes they need a little bit of help along the way because maybe they're not acting or living just the way they should. And so I know most of us husbands, we thank God for even our wives, not just our mothers, but our wives who help us. Can you at least try to stay on the straight and narrow here because you seem to be getting way off. Come on back, right? And so they sometimes help speak some wisdom and perspective into our lives so that we don't get too far off, right? So they bring us back to reality. But here's a woman that's strength because she's working. She's diligent. She's busy. And so this is making her a strong person. We'll get back to that word about being strong again. In verse 20, she opens her hand to the poor. She reaches out her hands to the needy. So again, she's not just thinking about herself and even her own family. And again, this can be a challenge in every generation, to say, who am I mostly concerned about? Well, yes, you need to be concerned about your family and your own children because they are the ones you have the greatest influence over. They are the ones that God has said you are to lead and guide. And so that was the verse from Deuteronomy chapter 6 that Josh read. So that's kind of helpful for us to kind of see how that works together about the responsibility is even in our own homes, right? To raise our children. But she's also concerned about others, those people that are less fortunate. How can I help people that have these kinds of needs? And again, it's not always just a physical need. Maybe there's other kinds of needs that people have in their life. And so she is able to think about others and somehow, amongst all this busyness of life, find a way to serve other people, which is great for women to do, men too. But a lot of times when a woman is at home with the children, and she is serving others, what's she also doing? She's modeling for her children how you need to give, right? So, we've kind of thought about that sometimes. As a parent, when you are raising children, your children are actually watching. This should not be the motivation, by the way. Your children are watching how you treat your mother and your father in their older age, right? How do you treat other people? Well, the kids are watching that and go, wow, you really give and you serve and you try to meet the needs of your own parents. And there's a lot of reasons maybe you should do that. One being, one of the 10 Commandments, honor your father and mother, which is in the New Testament. I know Ken read that in Ephesians 6, honor your father and mother, because this is the first commandment with a promise. By the way, it's not the first commandment, is it? But it is the first commandment that has a promise, right? The promise is if you honor your father and mother, life will go well for you. In other words, you'll have a long life, or at least you will have a full life. You will have a blessed life because God is going to be watching over. You can figure out what will happen if you don't honor your father and mother. But we want to honor our father and mother. The point is, the way we treat people, whether it's our own father and mother or if it's just the needy people, our kids are watching. And they're going to learn. And maybe there's a good chance they're going to imitate us, and they're going to treat other people the way they've seen us treat other people. So we're modeling, because it's one thing just to always talk about it. Let's go to Sunday school again because they're going to teach you how to be a good Samaritan. But at home, we're too busy thinking about ourselves to be a good Samaritan to anybody, right? So that's not going to work. So we show, we teach, we help our children as they're growing up, even how we reach out our hands to the needy, how we help the poor and those people that have needs. All right, Proverbs 31 and 25. Here's this idea of the clothing again. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. So again, some good words for all of us, not just even women, for all of us. Strength and dignity are her clothing. So what are we concerned about usually? My clothing, right? I'm concerned, well, how do I look today? Does this match, right? Is my hair okay? Right? I mean, what are we concerned about? How do I look? Am I Facebook worthy selfie? Am I ready for that photo right now? Right? It doesn't say anything about that here. Where is her strength? What is she concerned about? How I look? It's not the outside. Now, thank you so much for taking a shower and bathing and putting on your deodorant or whatever you have to do, and you all look pretty good. You do. I'm not saying, and there's nothing wrong with getting dressed up and putting makeup on and doing whatever you do with your hair, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But if that's our only concern as a Christian, that's a big problem. Now, people in the world, maybe that is their only concern, as long as I look good. So I want to have the right house and the right car. I want to have the right clothes. I want to have the right job. I want to be able to talk the right kind of language. I want to come across the right kind of way because, I want to be all about me. But that's not what she's about. That's not what a Christian should be about. I'm concerned, as Peter would say in 1 Peter 2, the inward qualities of a woman, someone who's a gentle and quiet spirit. And those are great qualities for guys to have as well, not just women, a gentle and quiet spirit. Right? So I know with that, I'm not really preaching, if you were the choir, sometimes preachers will say, I'm preaching to the choir. But actually that time I'm just preaching to the conductor, like just to me, right? Gentle and quiet spirit, that's not me, right? But hey, I need to work on it, right? Be a gentle and quiet spirit. I know some of you are saying, boy, if you could be gentler and quieter now, we can get out 5 minutes early. And she can laugh at the times to come. Why? Because she's ready, she's prepared. Does that mean that she's got everything lined up and everything planned for the future? No. She's saying, I'm living correctly in the moment. I'm living to the best I can right now. Because I don't know what the future is going to hold. But I know with God and I, we can make it through it. We can handle it. We've already made it through a lot of difficult times. We've already struggled. We've already had tough days. If more tough days come in the future, that's okay. Because we're just getting stronger now. I'm stronger today than I was yesterday, and I'll be stronger for the day tomorrow, even if it's worse than today. I'm building my faith and my confidence in God that He is going to help me. So people say, hey, we're in for a financial collapse, or we're into, the whole political system falling apart, or we're into some kind of, terrible days ahead. It's like, well, I can't change it anyway, but that's going to be okay because I'll make it through. It's not a big deal, right? I can't change it, but I know God and I, we can handle it together. So I have confidence even through that. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. All right? So when she speaks, whether to her husband, to her children, to others, it's just talking about this woman. Again, not necessarily in a mothering role, but certainly to children would be included. She speaks with wisdom. Boy, that's hard sometimes too, isn't it? It's not because we're not wise, but sometimes just the first thing that comes to our mind is not always that wise, right? It's just we're just speaking off the cuff, and it just we say some things that probably it's just not that good to say. But here's a woman that she can control even ideas that start in her head, and before they come out of her mouth, she can maybe be analyzing, thinking, that's probably not the best thing to say now. And I know you know people like that. It's kind of like, I know you've been thinking about that because I'm kind of thinking about that too, but it's not just really the right thing to say because you're just going to hurt a lot of feelings. Or people are going to think you're really judgmental. Or they're going to think that you're like half crazy. And you probably are, but you don't need to tell everybody about it, right? So, but here's a woman, she speaks with wisdom. When people listen to her, they realize she's got good things to say because she's already proven herself. Does that make sense? So if you're somebody that is always telling half-truths or even sometimes half-truths, or if you're somebody who gossips all the time, guess what people think about you regarding your reputation? They think zero, right? They think you're not trustworthy, you're not reliable, you don't speak with wisdom, you make up stories, you're unbelievable. And not in a good way. Wow, you're so unbelievable. No, it's not like that unbelievable. It's like we don't trust you. But when you speak with wisdom, people are like, wow, that's somebody that we need to be paying attention to. She's a woman that's got some good ideas. She's thought some things through. And it's all coming from a pool of knowledge. So the other thing on this is not just wisdom, but it says she speaks with kindness. Some people can be very wise, but the way they say it, it doesn't sound very kind. It's not very gentle, right? It's just, you can be right, but say things in a very mean way, right? So you can say things that are even biblical, but you can turn people off of God and the Bible the way you say it, with your attitude, sometimes with your tone of voice. So how is it that we grow in this idea of being gentle? So she's a gentle person. Kindness is on her tongue. So that may be the thing she says, but also how she says it. Very, very powerful as we learn from that. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain. again, that's not our world, right? Because people in the world say, beauty and charm is what it's all about. Those are the people that, are popular in our society. But this mother has told this son, who evidently at some time was a prince, and now he's a king, charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but the woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. We're going to sing a song. We've heard the joyful sound. I should just close with this one so we don't get too far ahead. We don't know who wrote this. We don't know who wrote this. We don't know who the king was. But a lot of people say that it was Solomon. Because, a few of the Proverbs were written by Solomon. Solomon had a few other names. I don't know if we'd call them nicknames or middle names or kingly names or whatever, but some people think this King Lemuel is the same as King Solomon. Now, if that's true, if it was King Solomon, I can tell you a couple things. He did not take his mother's advice very well, did he? Because a lot of the women, I know this is kind of a crude word, a lot of the women that he hooked up with and he abused and he misused and he took advantage of his position and his authority and his power, not only did he bring those women down, they brought him down. But here's something else for mothers and women in general, but could I just say specifically to mothers? If this was Solomon, who's his mama? Bathsheba. I think she must have learned a lot of good lessons. But if you look at the beginning part of her life, her marriage, I'm guessing as a young woman, the things that happened to her, boy, that could have made anybody bitter. That could have gotten anybody angry. That could have made anyone say, I'm giving up, I'm quitting. But if this was Bathsheba, if it was, she's one of the most powerful women in the Bible. To go from what she was, to be able to teach her son lessons like this about a woman of noble character. So don't give up, is all I'm saying. Don't say, well, you don't know about my past. You don't know about the mistakes I've made. You don't know how I failed. I failed my family. I've not done what I should have done. I've not handled all the situations. I wish I could go back and change and do it differently. And I don't know if I can say we all do, but I do. I'm guessing we all do. We all wish that we could have changed some of the things that we did, maybe when we were growing up, when we were a young adult, when we first got married, when we were raising children, and even yesterday, right? We just wish we could have done it differently. We can't change the past, but we can change our future. And this is why Jesus came to say, I'm inviting you into my family, a royal family. You can be born again. You can be accepted. You can have the power of God working in your life. You can have all the resources of heaven available at your fingertips. You can have God as your Father, that you can pray to Him. You can call upon Him. You can ask Him at any time. Whatever your needs are, you can pour your heart out to Him, and He's listening. He is concerned, and He is going to speak to you. Now, not in an audible voice, but He is going to deal with you and respond to you in a loving and in a gentle and in a kind way, because that's the kind of Father He is. So if we can encourage you today in your walk with Christ, if you understand the love that God has for you, if today you want to be a part of that family, you can do that. Just by saying, God, I want to be a part of your family. I want to live under your roof. I want to claim your promises. I want to live according to your plan for my life. I'm going to make Jesus the Lord of my life and be baptized into Christ. Let's stand, we'll sing, and let us know how we can be a blessing today.